Well, this is one of the few types of structure or cover that I feel I can say confidently you can find fish on 365 days a year, but there's definitely more efficient ways to cover it, and we want to approach it properly. Number one is always take into consideration that wind or current. We want to be facing into it. The bass are going to be facing into it, so whether it's natural current, wind, man-generated current, whatever it is, make sure you take that into consideration and approach this section of riprap accordingly. Face into that current. Next, if it's a cloudy day or overcast, even partly cloudy that has some wind going on, I am going to parallel this riprap to start, and I'm going to try to hit what I call the 3 different depth zones. I am going to hit that super shallow, those mid depths, and then a little bit deeper, but I'm going to start paralleling it because it is super efficient. The bait is in the zone the longest period of time, and I can cover the most amount of water to find where those fish are. And the baits that I'm going to use to start off doing this are usually going to be some sort of crankbait, whether it's a square bill, shallow running square bill, or maybe something a little deeper, a deep diver that, hits that 8-foot, 9-foot range. Spinner bait works really well, but those are the things I'm going to start with to try to locate some fish. These fast searching baits pick off the more aggressive fish or find them quicker, so that way I know where those special places are. When you run across a great big stretch of riprap, especially on something like a causeway, it could look like hundreds of yards of the same thing, but all of them have got special places, whether that's a little piece of wood that is, submerged and right there with it. The rock all of a sudden gets a little bigger. Maybe there's a dip in the shoreline. Maybe there's some vegetation coming up to it. We really are looking for those spots within a larger spot. Next thing to consider, if it's sunny and calm, so if you've got one of these bluebird days or there's very little cloud cover and that water is slick, now I'm going to go from paralleling to hitting it more perpendicular at a 90-degree angle. And the reason being is I want to search those different depths on every cast. When I parallel it, I'm really focusing on one depth, but when it's calm, slick conditions out there, that sun is high, I'm going to go ahead and pivot and cast right up to it and bring my lures out, so I'm covering multiple depth zones to help me dial in where those bass are sitting a little bit easier. And then if I'm very confident I find a zone where they're at, well, then I can go ahead and flip it around and parallel again and focus specifically on that certain depth. But sunny and calm, boom, 90 degrees, hit all those different depths on the way back. And this is probably the coolest part about fishing riprap, and something that a lot of anglers, miss out on or maybe don't focus on as much as we should. And that is, riprap is one of those pieces of cover structure that you can hit multiple times. The bass like to kind of roam up and down this stuff, and they're always moving into these sweet spots or maybe moving on to the next one. So this is something that I have no problem with fishing it, turning that boat right around and fishing it again. Maybe switch up the baits, put a spinner bait on if that rock is not too terribly big. Some of your bottom bouncers work well. I've had, luck with shaky heads or fishing a bladed jig through there. And if you have a really tiny section of riprap that you're fishing, well, maybe you got to pull off and let it rest for just a bit. But boy, if you've got a big area you're working, I just keep making loops right through it, and you would be surprised how long those special areas you find can be really active. Another lure that I love to throw on riprap is a jerkbait, a hard suspending jerkbait. Well, if you'd like to watch a video right here and what I think is the most critical factor for fishing jerkbaits, go ahead and check it out, and make sure you go out and encourage someone today. You never know how you might just change their life. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'm your host, Steve Rogers.